Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pizzapia, and today it's about the buy and the sell, the wide receiver edition. That's right, we're going to talk wide receivers here with Andrew Erickson, my boy, and the Welsh is here. That's right. Is it the Welsh on the Twitter machine, Mr. In This League himself, and my co-host from the MLB show right here on Fantasy Pros leading off? Welsh, it's great to see you. But I got to put you to work right away, so let's kick things off here. Christian Kirk has gotten off to a great start of the season. Last 2 weeks, not so much. Are we buying, selling, or holding Mr. Christian Kirk of the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Boy, did I love Christian Kirk, especially early on in the year. He's had the dreaded mark of the beast as far as receptions go for the first 3 weeks, 666. His targets have reached over 27 targets in the first 3 weeks, but his receptions have dropped to 3 over the last 2 games. I think he's crazy talented. I think he's one of the best slot receivers in the league. They do have other talented receivers. I think this team as a whole is going to continuously be playing from behind, and they need to get going. I think Christian Kirk is a very important part of that. And, you know, you saw him get 9 or more targets in 3 of the first 4 games of the season. So what's happening currently is kind of an anomaly, as they've lost 2 bad games. And the hope here in a bye is that they're going to rectify this and fix this and get him the ball. And I think they will. I think he's talented enough. This is a prime opportunity to buy probably a top 15 wide receiver at a post wide receiver 25 range, I think is what you're looking at. So yes, I would buy on him. Slot receivers, especially talented slot receivers like this, they're going to get this type of volume, are players that I want. And I think the last 2 weeks is just more of an anomaly. Even 2 weeks ago, only 2 catches, but it was on 9 targets. They have to get him the ball to win games. So I'm a buy on Christian Kirk.
And, you know, I think we all sort of said, well, it was the Eagles. So the 2 catches in 9 games, a good secondary, it's a good defense, a good team.
Yeah.
But last week against Houston, that was kind of where we all went, yeah, that one the sticks in the craw, I think. Now, he's still wide receiver 15 and half PPR. So just putting that out there, it's not like he's fallen off the map, but let's shake the trees and see if we can find some deals here. Now, these are the most traded guys on Sleeper, so I want to see if I can maybe tempt one of my friends here with a deal. Welsh, would you rather have Christian Kirk or Chris Godwin rest of season?
Oh, dang. I was getting prepared for the next one. I thought this one was going to Erickson. No, don't do this to me. Because, man, I got to tell you, the only thing that's holding me back on Godwin is the injury stuff. That's it. And in this case, I still think there's a floor with him. And I think there's an upside that trounces him. So I'm going to go with Chris Godwin. You're not going to be able to get my Godwin for your Christian Kirk at this point, regardless of the injury. I think this is actually going to be a good week for him to get going. I'm taking a little bit of a risk because of Godwin's stuff, and they do have targets out there. But I don't know. Brady has been playing abnormally bad. We all know that. We've all seen that. You got to hope that it's going to get right. Chris Godwin's going to play a major role in that. And a lot of the other receivers have dealt with injury issues. So this is close, but it's just not enough for me to take a top reception option with the Bucks for not the top option with the Jaguars at this point. So I'm going to keep my Chris Godwin.
I like that you say Jaguars, like you're from London.
Jaguars.
Jaguars. All right, Andrew Erickson. Now, you always say the best ability is availability. So do the injuries scare you with Chris Godwin? You want Christian Kirk? Who do you want rest of season?
I'm still going to go with Chris Godwin. I mean, I know that he only played around 50% of the snaps in last week's game, but apparently, you know, reading between the lines, the Bucs reporters were kind of speculating that they had taken him out in the second half because they were winning. So I think that they're just trying to be careful with Godwin because he still caught 6 balls. You know, he's 6 for 6 on his 6 targets, so he was still productive. He caught more passes than Christian Kirk did. He only played half the game. So I still think that Chris Godwin offers that same type of PPR floor that Kirk has seen, but I think he's got such a higher ceiling in this Bucs offense with Tom Brady. We know Mike Evans is not someone that commands targets at a very high rate. He just scores a lot of touchdowns. So Godwin, I think, from the slot is still going to be Brady's favorite guy. And if Godwin continues to get healthier as the season progresses, then you're looking at someone that we can easily see finish top 12 because, you know, that's where I had Godwin ranked before all this injury stuff kind of happened with him. He was ranked in the top 12 right next to Mike Evans.
All right, let's do another one here. So a player who's not playing too well last 2 weeks with Christian Kirk, or a player who's playing very well of late, which is Tyler Lockett, because he gets to play with all elite Geno Smith. I mean, come on, baby. It's the Seahawks offense. So Tyler Lockett has worked himself into wide receiver 8 overall in half PPR. who would you rather have, Erickson, rest of season? Tyler Lockett, who you kind of know and you feel comfortable with, even though you are still kind of, I feel like, looking out of, between your fingers through one eye to see if the Seattle attack continues to do what it does? Or do you take Christian Kirk and put faith in what you saw in the first few weeks of the season?
I'm going to still go with Christian Kirk here. I mean, last week, Marvin Jones saw 11 targets. So if you're fading Christian Kirk, then you must think Marvin Jones is going to lead this team in targets from here on out, which I just don't think is going to happen. I mean, Evan Ingram, 10 targets, Zay Jones, 8 targets. Like, it's just the matchup called for those guys to see the ball. And what do you know? The Jaguars lost again because they didn't get the ball to Christian Kirk. So yeah. I think that, look, Lockett is still going to be boom or bust, even with Geno Smith at quarterback. DK Metcalf is still the alpha in that offense. They basically are neck and neck in terms of target share. Whereas Christian Kirk, I mean, he's the alpha in his passing game. And I know that it wasn't the case last week, but that's 1 week. Wide receiver variance happens because it's a position that's dependent on another position. So yeah, Lockett's definitely riding high right now, as a lot of the Seahawks offense is, but they're going to have their down turns when they have some tougher matchups. So I'm going to still go with Christian Kirk.
Welsh, how about you, Kirk or Lockett?
Yeah, I think Erickson said this the best overall. I'm going to go with Christian Kirk. I think Lockett might represent a little bit higher of a floor. Kirk maybe a little bit higher of a ceiling, if you want to go with that. I think these guys are within 1 point of each other, even though that's kind of the funny thing about this. Lockett's inside the top 10 of scoring in PPR. But, as far as a per game basis, they're within 1 spot of each other, 13.3 for Tyler Lockett and 12.5. So under 1 full point here. But I think Christian Kirk's upside still exists. He's got to be the primary target, where I don't see Lockett as a primary target. I just think he's safer. So I think these guys might be right next to each other. I actually think it's a pretty fair trade if someone wanted to do it. You got the high end of what Lockett's doing right now versus Kirk struggling a little bit. But I had Kirk pretty exponentially higher than Lockett going into this year. And I think this is just a slow patch. So I'm going to go with Kirk over Lockett.
All right, we're talking wide receivers. And speaking of wide receivers, we've got a giveaway right now at fantasypros.com/contest involving a wide receiver. It's an Amon-Ra St. Brown autographed helmet. That's what we've got right there for you. That is an unbelievable piece of sports memorabilia, and it can be yours thanks to our good friends at pristineauction.com. We want you to go leave a review of the podcast. We know you're listening. We know you're watching on YouTube, but for those of you just listening, whether it's Apple or wherever you get your podcasts, please leave a nice 5-star review. Talk about how much you love the show. We know you're listening. We see the numbers, and we appreciate you. So show a little love back, and we will give you more free stuff. That's right, an Amon-Ra St. Brown autographed helmet. That will be yours. All you got to do is go to fantasypros.com/contest. And remember, if you follow us on all the social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, and of course the Twitter machine at FantasyPros, you get more entries into the contest. That sounds like a pretty good deal to me. So get all your entries, get the Amon-Ra St. Brown swag, and get on it at fantasypros.com/contest. Here's the next wide receiver to chat about here. Another guy who's being traded quite a bit over on the Sleeper app. Andrew Erickson, Diontae Johnson. Are you buying, selling, or holding DJ?
I am selling Diontae Johnson. Just look at the last 2 weeks. He has a 20% target share. You know what it was weeks 1 through 3? 33%. It's dropped 13 percentage points in the last 2 weeks. What changed? Oh, that's just the quarterback in the offense. Like, that matters so.
Is that a temporary change, though, Andrew? Or is there just a trend to be concerned with? Because sometimes we have the backups, they come in and they're more familiar with some of the other guys that aren't the ones. Is this something that can rectify itself over time?
Well, I mean, if you're a rookie quarterback, you're going to throw the ball who you're comfortable with. I guess through practice, you can get more comfortable with Diontae Johnson. But when bodies are flying around, Kenny Pickett's I have to throw the ball to Diontae Johnson because he's the number one. No, he's going to George Pickens.
Good
that's
impression, by the way.
That's what we've seen the last 2 weeks. And just the style of play from Kenny Pickett, where he's going to be more aggressive downfield. Mitchell Trubisky's yards per attempt to start the year was exactly what Big Ben's was last year. So it was the, short, caters perfect to Diontae Johnson as a elite short to intermediate route runner, where he's winning on these button hooks and coming back to the football. It just, I think the style of play between George Pickens and Kenny Pickett fits better. And that's why we're seeing George Pickens outproduce Diontae Johnson, even though Diontae Johnson had 13 targets last week. Remember, keep it in perspective. Kenny Pickett threw the ball 52 times. So yes, 13 targets is a big number, but it was only still 25% of the team's total targets, which is still good. But Diontae Johnson needs a 30% target share because of the inefficient targets that he is seeing basically on a weekly basis because of the the quarterback play. So for me, Diontae Johnson, I'm trying to push this 13 targets as yeah, man, he's still the number one. Take him off my hands because they're playing. The schedule is brutal for the Steelers coming up. Tampa Bay next week, and George Pickens I think is legit. Like, he is a legit guy, and no one's going to be surprised that a Steeler. What do you know? The Steelers drafted another good receiver in the second round. Shocker.
The sky's blue. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm Kenny Pickett. I like ice cream sundaes and George Pickens. That's my name.
My hands are not small. I can really throw the ball.
My hands are much bigger than you think. All right, let's see if we overplay our hand a little bit here with our love or hate of Diontae Johnson. I'm going to throw a trade at you here, Andrew Erickson. You tell me, who would you rather have rest of season, Diontae Johnson or Terry McLaurin?
Full disclosure, I don't really like either of these guys. But if
fair.
I have to pick one of them, I'm going to pick Terry McLaurin.
Okay, so Terry McLaurin for you. Welsh, how about you? Terry McLaurin or Diontae Johnson? Who do you think has the better second half of the season here?
By the way, just real quick, can we have Kenny Pickett become the South Park Canadian character where he's like, I'm Kenny Pickett.
Hello, I'm Kenny Pickett.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kenny Pickett.
Hello,
I love
friend.
George Pickens, not Diontae Johnson. Yeah, friend. That's Kenny Pickett now, just forever.
Him and Diontae Johnson had that conversation. I'm not your friend, buddy.
Yeah, I'm not your friend. I'm not your buddy, pal. Yeah, exactly. That's it. I really don't like Terry McLaurin anymore. I want to. I really do. I like Carson Wentz.
Well, the De'Ami Brown stuff, I just threw my hands up. You know, that gif of Sheldon from Big Bang Theory where he just throws the papers up in the air. That was me with Terry McLaurin this week.
Well, like, and you look at like the Bills, and I think the Bills have like 4 legit wide receivers, and you can go, okay, well, they're going to take away from each other, but this is a big, powerful offense where they can sling the ball. I look at Washington, and I go, well, I don't think this is a great, powerful offense with one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. His own coach thinks he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. They don't think they have one. And you also got a share of like Curtis Samuel, who's been outscoring him. You've got Jahan Dotson, who is a huge touchdown target. And then you got Terry McLaurin sitting out there. He's becoming the Antonio Gibson of wide receivers in just some small little fashion. I agree with a lot of what Andrew said about Diontae Johnson. I mean, Diontae Johnson on the year, my only problem with this is I don't know if he still holds the cachet. We talked about this in the running back episode about players that I think it was James Robinson that doesn't quite have that trade value to be able to move off. So what's it worth? Diontae Johnson scoring in like the 30s, 8.8 points per game in half PPR so far. Over the last 2 weeks, George Pickens, with Pickett in there, is averaging over 12 points per game. So, I mean, he is averaging more in the last 2 weeks than you're seeing Diontae Johnson the whole season. But I'm coming to say this, that the volume is still there. There's obviously some connection issues going on as Diontae Johnson's drop rate is just ginormous right now, and he can't get in those targets. They're always going to be from behind, though. They're always going to be from behind. If Kenny Pickett's going to throw 50 times, Diontae Johnson's going to fall himself into some volume. So between the two, I'm going to take Diontae over Terry McLaurin. And overall, I just don't know how much you can trade Diontae for that. I almost would probably rather hold unless we get something pretty. And Terry McLaurin is not pretty enough.
Well, I know this next guy I'm going to throw at you isn't pretty, but the offense potentially is, and the quarterback certainly is. So Kansas City Chiefs, in all full disclosure, you know, we were set to do this show. I did all the show sheets. This was before another down game for JuJu Smith-Schuster, but let's talk about it. JuJu Smith-Schuster with the Chiefs, where we all keep waiting for everything to gel and work out, or are you going to go and just kind of slum around with Diontae Johnson and hope that things just start to get better and improve in terms of their connectivity, Welsh?
I would love to say JuJu. Preseason, I was not as like Bogman, but it was one of the higher on JuJu. You got to love the target share is pretty consistent in 5 games that he's played. 4 of those 5, he's had 8 targets in there. But the ball just gets spread around. I mean, Patrick Mahomes kind of gave us the playbook of how they're going to run this offense, and it's just going to be all over the board. So I do trust that JuJu is going to get his share, but he looks bad right now. He looks not healthy, and that share that he gets just isn't enough as far as the game changer that he is to make any impact for me to move off of Diontae again. I don't want to be the Diontae Johnson guy because I am, as you're going to find out, more of the George Pickens guy. So I don't want to be, but I just still think give me 11 targets to Diontae Johnson or 8 to JuJu Smith-Schuster with how JuJu's playing right now. I'm still going to take Diontae Johnson. I really don't know if there's a bigger win in this. And maybe the bigger story is JuJu and Diontae are way closer than they should be. And that's really alarming from the preseason. So I will just slightly give it to Diontae.
All right. How about you, Erickson? Same thing, or you going with the JuJu side?
I mean, in these situations, I try to take a step back, not look at the targets, not look at the offensive situation, just look at the 2 players. And there's a reason why the Steelers kept Diontae Johnson and said, JuJu, you can buy, because Diontae Johnson's at least show that he can be an alpha receiver. And he's just better than JuJu. JuJu is a beta receiver. When he was good putting up numbers, he was a beta. He was the number 2 to Antonio Brown, and he's showing it once again that Like, he's not an alpha.
Now he's just number 2.
Now, exactly. So, yeah, just not excited about JuJu, not excited to play him in my teams. It's like he's in that wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 zone where, yeah, he gets targets. Mahomes, like, you can always kind of paint the picture like, oh, well, it could be this week. Like, he does get targets, but it's just like, how long are we going to keep chasing this season that happened? 3 or 4 years ago? Yeah, he's still 25 years old, but
I don't get it.
Yeah.
JuJu, you're not my friend, buddy.
All right, let's get to the buy lows and sell highs at wide receiver for week 6 in fantasy football. Erickson, why don't you kick things off? Give me your buy low wide receiver this week.
I'm going to go with Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Detroit Lions. Look, so he was on a pitch count last week. I don't even know why they even played him, honestly, because they were going on a bye week. So he only had 4 catches for 18 yards on 6 targets. But I think it's interesting to kind of note that when he was on the field, like Jared Goff was still like peppering him with targets, a 38% target rate per route run. So that was actually 6 percentage points higher than his target rate entering week 5, which was 32%. So we're still seeing a receiver hovering around that 30% target share mark. And look, we were like putting Amon-Ra St. Brown like in the top 8 conversation. And I saw people out here saying like, oh, should I trade X player for Amon-Ra St. Brown or George Pickens? Like, is George Pickens now in the same range as Amon-Ra St. Brown? Like, is that how low people have gotten on him? Are people concerned about, Jameson Williams now coming
in Discord? I'm getting so many Amon-Ra St. Brown questions all the time on Twitter too. I'm like, guys, let's pump the brakes.
I think they're all
get him healthy.
Too, by the way, I think that's the fun thing about Amon-Ra St. Brown right now is every trade. Hey, should I do this for Amon-Ra St. Brown? You should do it. Yes, you should. Should I?
Yes, but I'm seeing some people who don't know what to do with him right now are getting a little panic. Look, hope that he gets healthy here through the bye, and then you go ahead and you just get right. I think Erickson's 100% right on that one. Finger on the pulse, as always. Erickson, well done. All right, Welsh, who's your buy low wide receiver this week?
Yep, I love that one. And as much as you said, are we trading Amon-Ra St. Brown for George Pickens? No, but I am trading for George Pickens. One of the fun things about him right now is he was like the big top pickup guy. And, if you really think about like strategy in fantasy, there's sometimes this extra availability for a player that someone might have picked up off the wire. Yes, sometimes they can hold tighter, but when you're going into the trade market and let's say someone picked him up off the waivers 2 weeks ago, they can look at it and be like, wow, I just got this waiver guy and now I'm going to get, said player over here, said player over here. So sometimes the tradability can be easier. And Pickens is my guy, 16 targets over the last 2 games. 8 red zone targets so far this year, which think about how he wasn't necessarily involved early on in the season. Those 8 red zone targets are more than CeeDee Lamb or Terry McLaurin so far this entire season. I mentioned the over 12 points per game over the last 2 weeks. He has the 12th best ADOT in the league at 16.72. He's a huge playmaker. He's a huge possession receiver. Pickett loves him. And this is an offense that has no running game right now. Najee Harris is broken. They're going to have to get Jaylen Warren in. They're going to be behind every single game. And Pickett is looking for Pickens on almost every single play. This guy is going to get 8 to 10 targets every single week. I think he's a wide receiver too. I want to buy low because I just don't think people are going to see it because the team sucks and he is not the number 1 wide receiver. He's a great buy low coming off of people picking him up right now.
All right, let's sell high on a wide receiver. And Welsh, I almost can't believe the guy that you're going to sell high on because
I know you're going to say
your guy.
I know you're going to say this. So last year, one of the fun things I got to come on and do is a preseason. It's actually one of your guys' most watched shows. I think of the preseason, preseason breakouts. And I'll say stupid stuff, but I said something really smart last year where everybody was drafting Brandon Ayuk. I came on and said, you're wrong. Deebo Samuel is the guy. And Deebo was right. And I told Joe at the end of the season, I'm like, why don't we pull that clip and play that over a couple more times to make me feel really good about myself? Well, good. I'm selling on Deebo this year. I'm a 49er fan. I watch every single game. Deebo looks bad. Jimmy Garoppolo, not great, but Deebo specifically looks lost in a lot of different ways in how they're using him. Early on in the season, whether it's screen passes, he's dropping passes, he's fumbling. The offense is not targeted around him right now, and he's still scoring enough where I think you can still get, I don't want to call it like a king's ransom or anything like that, but he's a top 12 scoring wide receiver. And he's becoming more touchdown dependent, which I know like he's going to be involved in that, but I don't like it. I don't like where this is heading, especially with Kittle coming back and how efficient they've been in the running game. Right now, he's averaging 1.8 fantasy points per touch, which is 101 at wide receiver. so far in the league. He's got the 10th worst ADOT in the league. Yards per target is around 7, which is not great. And he's been showing the inconsistencies with a 57% catch rate. He's also being used less in the run game. He has 9 rushes for 20 yards over the last 3 games, but he registers as a 10th best scoring wide receiver in half PPR. Now it's 11 after yesterday. So he's not being involved in the running game. As a wide receiver, they don't find great ways to get him involved. They get in the red zone, they will look towards him, but Kittle is back. Eli Mitchell is going to be back. Jeffrey Wilson Jr. looks fantastic. I'm selling Deebo right now, especially if people are viewing him as a top 10 wide receiver.
All right, Erickson, who are you selling this week at wide receiver?
I couldn't bring myself to put Gabe Davis on this list, even though he fits a lot of the criteria of a sell high wide receiver.
I'd kick you right off the show.
That's why I didn't put him on. That's why I didn't put him on the list, because
we got the good game. We got to keep him. He's got the Kansas City Chiefs this week. How can we sell him now? This is his favorite team.
Hey man, dude, Joe, the target police, man. The target police are coming out and be like, Gabriel Davis, where are your targets, man? Where are they? Where are the targets, man? We know you got them. So instead, I'm going to pivot with Michael Thomas here. So Michael Thomas is expected to come back after he missed the last 2 games. I just kind of want to point out his production during the early part of the season when he was producing, very touchdown dependent. You know, he was in the top 5 in terms of fantasy points scored over expectation. He wasn't necessarily commanding a super high target share in the Saints offense. We started to see Chris Olave really emerge as the number 1 wide receiver, even when Michael Thomas was still healthy. And obviously the last couple of weeks when he's been gone, Olave has been the go-to guy. I think that with the concussion that Olave suffered from last week, the potential that he misses a game, I think that kind of provides Michael Thomas managers this kind of segue to like, hey, Olave's going to miss a game potentially. Michael Thomas is going to be the number 1 receiver. And I just think that this offense with Andy Dalton / Jameis Winston / Taysom Hill, like, it's just not really catering towards, oh, this is Michael Thomas is going to feast the rest of the season. So I was able to trade Michael Thomas last week in a package for Breece Hall, which I felt great about, obviously.
Oh, wow.
So
jeez.
I still think that Michael Thomas has the name cachet to be moved. You can package him to get another piece for another player that we've been talking about, because I think people will be excited. Like, oh, he's off the injury report. Like, he's healthy. He's good to go. No Olave this week. I think that's kind of the story you can paint with Michael Thomas, and the fact that when he was healthy and playing, for the most part, he was pretty productive, but because of the touchdowns.
Do you think you should wait a week? Do you think you should wait for this game for him to get going?
I think it's dangerous if you wait, right? Because if you wait and he gets hurt in the game, I think Erickson might be onto something where, in all honesty, like, trade him now. Because always coming back from an injury, that's where everything is theoretically good and okay. Like, if he has a great game, awesome. If he has a bad game or gets hurt again or re-injures something, re-aggravate something, then you've missed the window. So I kind of think these next couple days are really going to tell the tale. I'm in that end of that one. All right, let's get to our questions here from you in our listener mailbag from our Discord, fantasypros.com/chat, free to join. But again, as premium subscribers, you get access to the stages, the touchdown contest, and of course, our AMA channels. Let's go to Cleety. Cleety wants to know, Judy or Jacoby Myers full PPR? Which side of this deal you want to be on, Welsh?
Don't love Patriots necessarily, anybody in the passing game, but you got to love Jacoby Myers. 8 targets, 7 catches, 111 yards last week. His previous game, 13 targets, 9 catches. He is the primary guy. I am no longer a Jerry Jeudy guy. Russell Wilson, I couldn't be more out on. So I'm not going to trust anything out of Russell Wilson and those wide receivers. Give me Jacoby Myers.
By the way, Erickson, is our Bailey Zappy shirts in the mail yet?
Mine's already hanging up. Right? Mine's hanging up. It's autographed. I already have it framed. It's his first
Zappy
NFL
hour,
win.
Baby. That's what time it is. All right, let's go to Denyo. Denyo, what do you guys think? Should I offer Ken Walker and Gerald Everett for Lamb and Pitts? Is that reasonable? It might be reasonable, but Erickson, do you want Everett and Walker or Lamb and Pitts? I know this is crazy if I asked you this 4 weeks ago, but what about now?
No, I mean, I still think I like the Lamb and Pitts side of things. I mean, Lamb, we're going to be getting Dak Prescott back soon. And Lamb was, with Dak Prescott, presuming the quarterback, was a fringe first-round pick this year. And all Lamb has done this season is, lead the NFL in target share. Like, Lamb is pretty much done exactly what we kind of expected him to do, even though he didn't have the quarterback that we all thought was going to be there. So I think Lamb is by far the best part of this deal. Obviously, we're excited about Walker, but I think Lamb is the best part.
Last one here from Soul Man. I have Russ. Would you trade for Dak? Welsh, I think this is a big fat yes, right?
Broncos country. Let's ride to Dak Prescott. Let's do it. We're whatever it takes. Out.
You can't wait anymore. Out. It's week 6. You only have 7 weeks or so to get yourself into the playoffs. That's it now.
You can get
Dak.
Also
hurt.
Patience.
Russ is also hurt.
Patience.
It's bad.
It's no good. But the
Let's
show was
ride.
great. And
Yes.
because we have wonderful guests like the Welsh joining us, hit him up on the Twitter machine at @IsItTheWelsh. Go check out In This League. Him and Scott Bogman doing amazing things over there, as always, enjoying the Patreon over there. Welsh, it's always great to have you on the show, buddy. And of course,
buddies.
don't forget about our contest, fantasypros.com/contest. We're giving away Amon-Ra St. Brown swag. Thanks to our friends at Pristine Auction. So go check out, go enter today. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Andrew Erickson and the Welsh, I'm Joey P. We will see you next time, kids.